Should have started streaming, hopefully, on YouTube. So, good evening, people. Coming up in just 2 or 3 minutes' time, Daily Chaos, Great Reset. What is it? What does it mean? What do we have to do to avert it? All that sort of stuff. Okay, so if you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward just a couple of minutes. Otherwise, I'll see you in a sec. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. There you go. Aye. 1 minute, people. 1 minute, good people. Yeah.
Chris. Piers.
Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad. I love it. You're ready for the wrong result, Chris. What are you doing in the armoury?
I'm cleaning my car.
Cleaning
Hey,
your
folks.
clock.
Good evening, good people, and welcome to the Daily Chaos. Yeah, the show ain't daily, but the chaos is. Yeah, and you know what? That's enough of that. Okay, yeah, great reset. What's it all about? And why should we be concerned? And protesting, getting on the streets, and doing what the Danish did, and so on and so forth. We've got Piers Garnham in the house. God bless you, Piers. Viscount St. David's is in the toilet at Viscount Towers. Hey, Viscount.
Ahoy, actually, I'm in the laundry room.
It's relegated to the laundry room. Jolly good. And we got Boosey, Chris Boosey in California, in the armory, I think, packing a pistol or something. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, and you, if you want to call in, please do. Want to have a bit of a chat about this, what's going on stateside, and how that affects this Great Reset, stroke New World Order, and so on and so forth. So please do call in on Zoom using chao.click/Zoom. And that link is in the comments at the top of YouTube. And we're just on YouTube tonight, just on youtube.com/Daily Chaos. So please, that's the place to comment and hang out tonight, and call us on chao.click/Zoom. And I guess the best way to approach tonight is with Boosey in California, who is pretty adept at what's going on with the US election stroke coup. Chris, what's going on? What's the latest as far as you're aware with the lawsuits? And is Trump going to prevail, or are we really, absolutely, desperately needing this conversation about the Great Reset?
I will start with some good news. His legal team has been announced, and that should give everyone some hope as to who he has on there. His legal team is being headed by Rudy Giuliani,
Ex-New York mayor. Yep.
Who is also the most experienced and competent attorney in dealing with RICO, organized crimes, rackets, and stuff like that. He's got Lynn Wood, who is also extremely good at,
yes,
and is the one that took out all of like the networks for when they accused that coveting kid of basically being racist and abusing a Native American. And you've got Sidney Powell.
Yes, Sidney Powell, who's been telling us... Go on, please.
What's really good is we know Sidney Powell doesn't say anything if she hasn't got the paperwork to prove it in front of her.
Was she not the attorney for the Michael Flynn case, defending Michael Flynn?
Is. So she never has come out with anything she can't back up evidentially. She's called the Biden transition team as a pointless exercise. And she has said that they have the evidence that this Dominion system is linked to the Biden campaign. They've got the VP who's actually been given a position on Biden transition team.
Now, hold on a sec. Okay. We will get to that. We will get to Dominion.
But she's basically to bring it into the small, she's basically said that it's going to be 4 more years.
She seems quite confident. Just
Yeah.
first of all, a very basic summarizing question. From what you see so far, do you think that Trump is going to prevail? Or do you think that this election is going to be stolen through voter fraud?
I think, honestly, that them doing the voter fraud, they were allowed to do it for the evidence, so that they can actually sort out some of the voting systems and have public support behind things such as voter ID. I think he's going to prevail. The legal cases, the Liberals around here are saying, I bet he's losing his legal cases. The
I'm
cases
sorry.
have
Yes.
to go through,
Well, that
the
has been
cases
reported in the media, hasn't it? That he's
the media are trying to say that, but what the situation is, they have to go through the state courts. The state courts, which have elected judges, and in a lot of these places, they're Democrat elected judges. So they're going through the state court, they're getting turned down. They're then going to the state appeals court, they get turned down. That then allows them to take it to the Supreme Court. They can't just take it straight to the Supreme Court. So it's all the only power that these Democrats have is kicking the can down the road. They can't act with the court cases. They can't get them completely ignored. They basically just kick the can down the road for the Supreme Court to deal with it. That's the most they can do.
Well, frankly, if you don't mind the interjection, it was always going to be the case that for either party, this is going to end up in the Supreme Court. And frankly, the Democrats are doing us a favour, or any Trump supporter a favour, by turning him down quickly. Because the sooner he gets turned down and can get to the Supreme Court, frankly, the better.
Exactly.
Rather than have a protracted state court hearing or series of hearings, it's like the sooner they tear up his applications, the sooner he can get in front of the court that ultimately is going to make the decision, even if the Democrats were in the same position.
It shows their desperation. It really does. This is their last fight. I mean, the fact that they were so brazen in rigging this election, and the fact that actually what this will prove once it is proved, and I'm almost certain that it will be, it will prove that elections have been rigged for decades. This is not just a singular event. This is something that has been taking place all over the world. I mean, this Dominion system has been used in Venezuela and God knows where else, to rig elections for the CIA, who have interests in making sure that their men or whoever get into power in different places around the globe, and now they've used it brazenly as a last-ditch attempt to try and get their candidate into power.
Piers,
in America.
I was sent a charming joke. It was a message from the president of Nigeria to the electorate that America really are very backwards in still counting votes, whereas in Nigeria they're much more efficient because all the votes are counted the day before the election. So it's the third world leading the developed world. I think a big piece of this, hopefully with a reset, and whichever way you call it, I'm in favour of a reset, but it's just a matter of who lays down those groundworks. And I think a big piece of it is the media, which has remained largely unreformed for the last 50 years. And I think the brazenness of the media to ignore facts. I mean, shortly after, in the last 3 weeks, if I was an investor, having invested or shorted the markets, I would have suffered financial loss as a direct consequence of reading the media. So there is an actionable, I think, case. But because of the changing nature of politics, with professional politicians pandering to the media barons, we now have an ineffective media. every time I speak to someone who's vaguely sensible, they preface anything they've read with apparently. Now, in the old days, when you're reading about troop marches in the Second World War or the First World War, there were some organs, namely the Times, the Telegraph, the broadsheets, and a handful of smaller publications where you would take their reporting almost as God read or God written. You could rely on what was being reported. Today, nothing could be further from the truth.
Hilariously, have you heard about AT&T is looking at selling CNN?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
I read that.
And I've already put, and I did also sneakily send a message to a certain campaign that might it not be a good idea for the Trump campaign to buy CNN and even worse, not sack everyone, but force them to report the real news. So they've literally you've got like your Don Lemons and your Brian Stelters and all that,
Cuomo,
literally having
all
to
that.
say through gritted teeth the truth, which they hate.
Chris, who was the potential purchaser who was put up? Was it Elon Musk? He was someone really unlikely who was a potential buyer for CNN.
Well, I don't know. I've kind of tried to push it towards. I've actually sent it to the Trump campaign, going, "Good idea, good idea." Just think how much it's going to piss them off.
Well, I mean, it's not just the attitude. I mean, they seem to have been complicit in this election fraud. I mean, they dutifully doctored the numbers on the night in conjunction with, I mean, I didn't watch the election. I wasn't up with you guys doing your Olly's show that night, but I couldn't sleep, and I got up at about 3:30 British time and turned on the television, and Trump was miles ahead. All the pundits were saying it's a foregone conclusion, he's going to win. And I thought, oh, great, okay, fine, I'm going to go to bed and everything's cushy. And then I wake up in the morning and everything's completely different, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the
Well, they're
hell's
saying,
going on?
aren't they? They're saying
Yeah,
that,
and
Trump.
that's what we were saying when we saw it live. We
Yeah.
saw
Trump-
the flip. And
Trump
we're
got his
that's
votes-
Not right.
Trump got his
That's
votes
not
during the
normal.
day, and then Biden got his votes in the middle of the night. It was most peculiar. Look, let me just read you the story very quickly, which is maybe the first arrests. California, according to Breitbart, 2 charged with voter fraud, allegedly submitted registration applications on behalf of homeless people. 2 individuals have been charged with multiple counts of voter fraud after allegedly submitting fraudulent voter registration applications on behalf of homeless people, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Carlos Antonio de Borbon Montenegro, 53, and Carlos Marcos Raul Arabelo, 34, were charged in a 41-count criminal complaint filed last week. The pair faces 1 count of conspiracy to commit voter fraud, 8 counts of voter fraud, 4 counts of procuring. There are so many cases like this. My Twitter stream, Boosey, is strewn with stories like this. Not yet people being charged. This is the first, hopefully, of many. But actually, in terms of what Piers was talking about, really alluding to there, was apparently this use of this software. Now, please explain how allegedly these guys, the Democrats, have been trying to steal this election using, what is it? The company is Dominion, I understand. The software is
Dominion voting,
Scorecard.
Dominion voting. Okay. Dominion Voting Systems is an electronic voting system thing, and they have their machines, and you put your paper ballots in there. However, it can also print ballots itself. It can have the records amended, the data is stored outside the US. The SIF system, the whole thing is linked to the Maduro regime and to Soros, and it uses Smartmatic technology.
Maduro,
Which is from Soros.
That's Venezuela. What's he got to do with it?
It was created, Dominion was created for them to rig the Chavez and Maduro elections.
This is what Sidney Powell is talking about, isn't it? Who is on the Trump team, one of the legals.
They've also said it was used to rig Argentina's elections, most recent ones.
And so, was this software? I don't know. I don't want to get into conspiracy theory stuff here. I want to try and keep this as factual as we possibly can. Was this devised by the CIA, for example, to try to overthrow elections of foreign states in a favourable way for the United States, which is now being used against the United States, or what?
No, but there is something called scorecard. Scorecard is a hammer and scorecard. They are NSA and CIA systems that have been developed so that we could interfere in foreign elections.
And basically that software shifts votes.
Will work into, you can use that into Dominion and change votes.
Yeah.
But
and
Dominion can do it itself as well.
We actually saw this through the night, live on CNN. And suddenly, didn't realise it at the time, but then videos started popping up off the back of the election showing how whilst the presenters were just a sec, Chris, just a sec. While the pundits were talking about John King or whatever about the scores on the doors, the scores would change, and all of a sudden the Republican candidate would have less votes than he had a few seconds before, and the Democrat would have more. Just unbelievable. That is actually what was going on. No, they were in real time changing votes. That is the allegation, presumably, that Sidney Powell and Team Trump are putting forward. No.
Yes, and she said it's not thousands of votes, it's millions of votes.
Well, it has to be millions of votes because at the moment, Biden is millions of votes ahead of Trump.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't actually have to be millions.
No. I suppose if you're looking at it from a constituency type of perspective rather than the popular vote.
Yeah. Because America works on the Electoral College system, and the Electoral College system means it's about how many states you win, not the popular vote.
Of course.
So, however, I did actually do some research on Dominion, because in Antrim County in Michigan, 30% of Trump's votes got moved to Biden. And they found it. Okay. What we've also found recently is 4 seats in, I haven't been able to work out whether it's within the House of Representatives for the state of Connecticut or whether it's Connecticut's House of Representatives for the US House of Representatives. But 4 seats, Connecticut decided we're just going to audit so that no one can argue, and 4 seats flipped from Democrat to Republican. So I did some studies taking the Dominion effect in Antrim County and transferring it across the country in the areas where Dominion is working. And I came up with some very interesting figures, and I've got them on my computer. If that 30% glitch in one county was transferred nationwide,
there's no such thing as a computer glitch. Computer programs are programmed. They just work.
Olly, I'm using glitch, as that's what they're calling it.
That's what they're calling it. A computer glitch.
However,
software glitch.
If that was transferred in every single state and county that uses Dominion software, Trump would be on 427 electoral college votes.
That's not far off what they're quoting, because apparently they've retrieved all the data from Germany in Hamburg, and they've got the discs, and actually they've recalibrated the election results on the back of what they found from the real figures in the Dominion system, and yeah, Trump wins by 410 votes to Biden's 148.
So when I did the research, 30% it was 427, to put that into context, both New York and New Jersey went for Trump in that situation. Yeah,
it doesn't surprise me. Kumo looks like the biggest gangster alive.
However, if just to be fair to them and say that it may not have been as widespread, I took it down to 5%. And that still gave Trump 327 electoral college votes. And when it comes to battleground states, Virginia was the battleground state.
Yeah.
On 5%, Virginia stays blue. And 10%, Virginia stays blue. Anything more than a 10% swing, Virginia goes red. And that's the only one that was in debate if this Dominion thing happened. And we know that even if they only did this in the battleground states, what it looks like is that all of the battleground states went to Trump if they did the Dominion switch in just the battleground states. However, we've already seen Connecticut show that it wasn't just in battleground states. So it means that it's highly...
California as well.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. California votes are coming through very, very slowly. Reason for it is because each vote I'm seeing at the moment is saying Democrat flip to Republican, Democrat flip to Republican. So they're teasing them out rather than openly showing in a big figure how many seats have flipped to Trump. Beverly Hills went to Trump. San Francisco did a 5% swing. It was still Democrat, but it went a 5% swing towards Republican. We've got California has gone purple.
What does that mean? It's gone purple. Oh, blue and red.
It's gone from being a blue state to a purple state.
Yeah, which is pretty unheard of. I mean, it does. If he did win over 400 electoral college votes, then basically he won nearly all 50 states. I mean,
I can actually tell you the states. If we look at this, if he had on the 427, he would not have won Hawaii. He wouldn't have won California or Oregon. He wouldn't have won Massachusetts or Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, or DC. That is it.
I've just pulled
Washington State, State, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, all go in red.
Chris, we're going to come back to that. I'll pull that map up in a sec. But right now, the scores on the doors as things stand. This is according to the Epoch Times, which is making a point of not calling races that are still in contest in the courts, for example. And according to them, Donald Trump is leading the Electoral College by 232 votes to Joe Biden's 227, with 270 is required to win. The outstanding states, according to the Epoch Times and many other people, being, according to the legals, according to what you can and cannot call, the states that are in contention at the moment are Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Okay, so we'll come back to Dominion in just a second, Chris. But of these states, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, Do you think that? I think Trump needs 3 of them. No, any 3.
Trump needs Pennsylvania, full stop. But he would also need a combination of to get to 270. He would need probably would need 3 states. However, what I'm also hearing is there's talk about potentially having revotes in those states because the votes are not they're that tainted that they can't use them. Or if there isn't time for a revote, there's talks that they're going to say for certain states that we cannot submit electors because the votes are so poor that we can't do a revote. There's not time for a revote. The data we've got is so tainted that we can't use it. So this state is not going to make any declaration. And therefore, the state electoral college vote will not count. They will go to no one. So it will be that state will just not will not make any declaration. On that, if no one can get 270, then it goes to Congress.
Yes, it goes to Congress.
It goes to Congress. Trump is the president.
Because whilst there does look still to be a majority of Democrats becoming Congress persons, there is more state-to-state delegation by the Republican Party, and they don't vote by Congress people, they vote by representation by state within the Congress, and the Republicans hold more states. Is that correct, Chris?
Effectively, what happens is the Congress becomes the Electoral College.
Yes.
But instead of it being out of 270, it's out of 50. Each state has equal say. Each state puts in. So, as it stands, I believe we're on something like 20 somewhere between 26 and 28 states that are Republican. They're Republican in the House.
Okay, so just to clarify, we are looking, if states remain contested, that will be the situation, that the House of Representatives will decide. Or is there some chance that the Supreme Court would decide? Surely not.
No. The Supreme Court will not declare a president. What the Supreme Court can do is the Supreme Court can say these votes can't be counted, these rules can't be counted, the elections are so fraught in this state that no one, so they can effectively put an injunction on a state and say you can't send electors because your data is so flawed. You're not doing it. So they can actually tell the state they're not putting anyone forward because you can't possibly make a declaration because your voting figures are Jackanory.
Yeah. And as things stand, is there any chance that there will be states that will be told, we're not going to include you in the Electoral College, we're not going to include you in the... And then, is there any chance of that?
Well, Ollie,
the
Dominion system is being used in over 20 states. I mean, if they prove
Dominion's been used in 28 states and in Maricopa County in Arizona and in Clark County and City of Las Vegas in Nevada. So, what that means is that there are no states, and all the battleground states use Dominion in some way. So
I understand the Dominion was used in 30 states.
No, it's 30 states total, but it's not widespread. 28 states, it is used in every county. In
Really?
the other
Wow.
two states are Arizona and Nevada, where Arizona it's used in one county,
Hmm.
and in Nevada it's used in effectively two counties.
Right.
I think, in actual fact, it'd be rather better if it was decided over a game of golf, a bit like that scene in Goldfinger, with probably the same type of trickery. And my money would be on Trump as
Slazzy to
James Bond.
7.
Basically, it looks as it stands at the moment. People are what I'm hearing from my sources, from various podcasts that I listen to, which are having people who actually know what they're talking about on and talking about it. Having people like Sidney Powell on, having people like Rudy Giuliani on, having people like a general that actually was talking about hammer and scorecard.
McKinley.
McKinley, yeah. So what they've looked at, the general consensus is we may not be able to work out what these states are doing. If we can get a decision that these figures are enough as an official statement that they're duff, we may have time to do a in-person, get this, 100% in-person revote, no, and they're just they're going to say, well, actually, one of the interesting things is in Wisconsin, some private individuals have sued the state of Wisconsin for vote disenfranchisement because free Democrat-controlled areas, despite the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling that it couldn't do this using COVID as a reason, they waived the requirement for absentee ballots to show voter ID, because Wisconsin is a voter ID state. So they waived the requirement in these three Democrat counties for people registering to vote in these elections and being given an absentee ballot. So these three Democrat counties, which voted overwhelmingly for Biden, and more or less you get rid of these these three counties within Wisconsin, that's got Biden's lead's dead, and then some. They're actually taking it to the Supreme Court to say that these counties disobeyed the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and we want the votes in these counties struck completely because you've disenfranchised me by allowing anyone to vote, even people who are not entitled to vote. And you can't tell us that they were all entitled to vote, as you didn't do the voter ID, which is required by state law. And because it's state law, and because the voting rules are based on the state, we're in a situation where those three counties that are what basically gives Biden the win, could just be declared null and void. And it's a private lawsuit from citizens who've gone, I ain't having this.
Is there not?
It goes back to what Chris was saying earlier on about. I do believe the Trump administration deliberately allowed this fraud to take place, because let's face it, the media are so liberally minded and bent against Trump, and people have been so heavily brainwashed over the last 4 years. Very intelligent people believe what they hear and what they read, and they have a sort of pathological hatred of the man and don't believe he can be trusted on anything. And that is largely down to this mass assault for the last 4 years by the media. So how do you get inside the heads of these people? The only way you can get inside the heads of these individuals is to show them firsthand fraud taking place. So I do believe that Trump was talking about massive voter fraud in this coming presidential election back in June, if not before. So it's nothing that they weren't already well prepared for and aware of. They knew it was going to take place. They allowed it to take place, and I do not believe the Trump administration would take the gamble of not being able to defend themselves. I mean, Trump is, does want some semblance of a legacy, and I do not believe he'd want his legacy in tatters pursuing such a treacherous, well, not treacherous, that's the wrong word. Well, foolhardy attempt at, claiming that the election was rigged unless he was fully confident that he could prove it.
Yes, I think the comments that you're making, in fact, a lot of the comments we are making, actually only really scratch the surface if we're going to talk about the big reset. You talk about intelligent people who, on the one hand, believe what they read. They're not intelligent people. Let's be very clear. What we have is a fundamental issue with the electorate and society. I mean, when Bill Clinton sat there prosaically and said, "I did not have sex with this woman," no one asked for a DNA test from the residue that was on her dress. The point is, any intelligent person would have said, well, in actual fact, to prove the point that the president is not lying, and if I was a Republican, I am a Republican, I would have demanded a DNA test, in actual fact, to either prove his innocence or his guilt. No one came up with that as an intelligent suggestion. But the Democrats the electorate were very happy to sit there and hear their president lie and repeat his lie 3 times. And then all of a sudden you're trying to tell me that intelligent people actually believe the rubbish that they read. Pussy gate, because he grabbed some pussy in a locker room. So what? Americans, I have to say, have demonstrated their abject stupidity and the disqualification, frankly, for their right to vote. They ought to earn their right to vote. I mean, one man,
it
one vote.
It always comes down to sex with you, doesn't it, Rodders?
Yeah. Oh, we should never have given the vote to the proletariat. Bloody
no, we can't give the plebs a vote.
No, Chris, don't get me wrong. The people I have a real objection to are those who think that they're educated. The man on the street has that rare quality which is called common sense, which somehow, as soon as you send someone to college and he's got a document saying he's intelligent, he thinks that he can, at avant-garde, go free, free fall with his views and depart from the basic common sense of society, because he doesn't have to fight for his daily bread. Anyone who has to work hard, I've got more in common with a working man who has a bloody tough time, a jolly tough time making ends meet, than I do with a Wall Street banker who is prepared to defraud his client base in order to buy the beach house in Long Island. And I tell you what, I reread the book The Big Short, and I would encourage everyone who has a vote to read it. Not because you might have a financial bent, but in actual fact, what happened in the financial collapse, which we still haven't recovered from, 2007, 2008, Wall Street created a dishonest, fraudulent money machine, taking money from the US taxpayer to enrich the few. And I'm a capitalist. I'm not a whinging socialist. And guess who ended up paying the bill twice? The US taxpayer. There was one person who went to jail over the entire debacle that cost America $21 trillion, recycling fraudulent paper, and they got a get out of jail free card. Goldman Sachs paid a fine of $5 billion for the dropping of all future actions. And when you actually look at the evidence available to any prosecutor, any reasonable-minded, decent person, Wall Street would be called, Prison Street, Jail Street. And I'm astonished that the politicians of the day didn't see fit, in actual fact, to reset the banking industry there and then.
Yeah, it's about the incestuous nature of the banking cartels, the political class, the media class. So that's why you don't see justice in those areas, and we know that incestuous relationship exists.
Well, but actually, this election fraud could
sorry,
open the whole thing up.
Well, do you know what? Actually, Chris, and Piers, Chris, the point that you've made actually is a very interesting one, because you've identified particular professional classes that would count themselves as qualified academically and intelligent. Now, what we have is a very clear divergence between the working man that effectively represents the guts of the American or any economy, and those overseers that, because they're in media, they're in banking, and as a consequence, the people in the middle, the politicians who have to bow to both. It means that you can function as a society without recourse to integrity. Now, that's astonishing, frankly, that after Plato's Republic, every trial of a democratic system has been tried, and those that weren't democratic, like Marxism, socialism, we've learned absolutely nothing, yet it's staring us in the face. The problem isn't with Biden, the problem is not with the media, the problem is with the people actually not saying enough is enough. This doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I think we're being coerced as well. And we're going to come on to the Great Reset in the next hour, as we go into the next hour. Just to update you, you're watching Daily Chaos. I'm Olly Connelly. With me, we've got Chris Boosey in California. We've got Piers Garnham in London, and Viscounts and Davids in Viscount Towers in the laundry room. And we've got Davy Russell just popped in. Davy, God bless you, mate. It was lovely spending election night with you. We were just talking about how Trump was getting all the votes until about midnight or something, stateside time. And then, middle of the night sort of stuff, Biden gets all the votes. What are your thoughts on what's going on? And do you feel that Trump will prevail, or do you think that the deep state are going to steal this?
Well, we could say time will tell, just like everybody else. But from what I'm seeing at the moment, from the posts, from the chatter that I'm seeing, certainly, I think within the next couple of weeks we're going to see something big go down, and this is going to involve the mainstream media. It's going to involve possibly some of our politicians our side. It's going to involve other countries that have employed this system to sway the vote to the way they wanted it to go. In which case, then we're possibly looking at if we see, Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, if there's other countries it's been used in. Anyone that took power after that, then surely all the laws and statutes, acts, or whatever they use in said countries are going to be null and void. This is bigger than Trump. It's a lot bigger than Trump. And I think, this man from the midterms in 2018, when he found out what was going on, I think he knew at that point in time that something big was going to go off. Now, we couldn't factor in for COVID, but I do solely believe that the deep state have colluded with China. I don't think COVID is as bad as what we think it is. I think they've used that to, destroy Trump and all the good that he's done, and they've used it for the mail-in voting. They pushed and pushed and pushed for mail-in voting, pushed and pushed and pushed. It's not safe. Nobody can go out and vote. We need mail-in voting, and look, lo and behold, all that in the streets drinking from wine bottles are left. So, we from one wine bottle in between a group of people. So, if we can see, past the mainstream media, if we can see past the reality we believe we live in, that's been concocted to keep us subservient and quiet, I would say, then what we're looking at, I think, is a major upset, and it's going to involve a lot of people. And I think as well, when I say it's possibly going to enter or involve people in our own country, I think that's certainly the case. I think that maybe, Boris
definitely. Definitely. MI6 played a major role in cooking up the false dossier that Russian collusion. Our Secret Service are all over it. I think one of the reasons why they're delaying extraditing Julian Assange is because they're terrified of Trump giving him clemency and getting him to putting him on the stand. He'll sing like a fucking excuse my French. Sing like a canary. I don't think I think the Americans are begging for the Brits to send him over, but they just won't. They keep delaying. Oh, he looked at somebody nastily in the shower. We've added 6 months to his sentence.
It's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, look, from Sidney Powell to Rudy Giuliani, to others, obviously, that I've been watching very closely. Newsmax and One American News also have been putting out that, how true it is, we don't know yet, but after going through the data from the machine. And let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, anything on your phones, anything on hard drives, whether you delete it or not, there's always a digital footprint, always, whether you smash these things up with a hammer or actually remove said part of the computer and put a new part back in which case then there'll be another footprint of this part being changed, being upgraded, being installed. So I think what we're looking at, in all fairness, is possibly they took people's attention away from the machines, the computer side of it, by looking at the mail-in voting and the absentee votes and the double counts and the dead people, to try and make sure that the lid wasn't lifted off of the machinery, to give them a chance to go in and get the machinery before anybody could do anything to it. But even if they did do anything, there'll still be a digital footprint. Now, when we understand how far this goes and how deep it goes, if for argument's sake, for what I've seen so far, they're saying now that Trump won with a 420 Electoral College lead. That's what they're saying. Now, I can't obviously verify that. It is speculation at the moment because we won't get any of that until this hits the courts. And I find it incredulous, really, that the media want all sorts of proof of fraud when that could potentially harm a court case. So, these people are playing a very, very nasty game, I think. They have been playing a nasty game. COVID-19 had a lot to do with it. And to push for mail-in voting was just the tip of the iceberg, yeah. I think, with everything else factored underneath. So when we look at what Donald Trump did and what he was aware of back in 2018 in the midterms, I think this has been completely and utterly properly set up for this man to expose. And if we go back just a couple of months, 3 months, and throughout his rally process, he was talking about he didn't know just how deep the deep state was and how deep the swamp was. And I think he realised after 2018 when the midterm, just how deep it was and how it was going to go. And he was trying to let us know then that this isn't over and it won't be over, especially when you've got the likes of Hillary Clinton telling Joe Biden not to concede at any point. So why should Donald Trump concede? Because they know if he doesn't concede, this is going to blow up in an almighty fashion.
Is it
exactly,
Davey? I think I'm getting a bit of echo from you. I don't know if you've got your volume up on the web browser or something like that. Sorry, somebody was.
Okay, Davey. Yeah, I did actually look at the Dominion thing before you came on, and I actually looked at what potentially could have happened, and actually one of the figures I came up with is 427 Electoral College votes. Because of
now this is according. There was this raid, wasn't there? I wanted to ask you guys about this.
Yeah.
What is the deal with that raid? Sidney Powell went on Lou Dobbs earlier. Or no, she tweeted. She did go on Lou Dobbs, and there was an amazing chat on there. But then she tweeted that the Kraken has been released. Somebody said, "When's the Kraken going to be released?" She said it was released a couple of days ago. Now, something else that happened a couple of days ago, apparently, allegedly, was this raid of this software place in Germany, which was correlating results or was doing a count. Goodness knows why America, the United States of America, isn't capable of tallying its own election results. But apparently it was being outsourced also to a company in Germany, which also has a branch in Barcelona in Spain. And the servers apparently were raided by the US Army in Germany. I mean, a foreign territory. And they've got all this evidence now. And your figure, Chris, I understand that Trump has basically swept the board with 410 electoral votes or whatever, comes from the evidence from those servers. I don't know the truth of that. Maybe you can throw some light?
Yeah. Okay, the company is called Cytel. It was headquartered in Barcelona, so right in your doorstep. But Cytel, which is actually the part that was connected to the Maduro Chavez side, has gone into receivership, and it had moved its headquarters from Barcelona to Frankfurt. So those servers were sitting there waiting to basically we've got in receivership, so everything gets taken and wiped and sold off, all the parts of the company, and therefore there's no record. So that's what apparently happened. The US Army, before they could wipe to sell all the parts, went and raided and took all the stuff. But what I'm also hearing, and this is from someone that I know who was in Washington with the Trump campaign on the night, just because hammer and scorecard was used by the Biden campaign doesn't mean hammer and scorecard, which belongs to the US government, was being watched live by the Trump campaign in Washington that night. So they witnessed the changes in real time, recorded, evidential, can be entered into court. So, yes, what it's looking like to me is that this is going to, because media's been saying electoral fraud doesn't happen, even though Charlie Kirk actually had the past 2 years of electoral fraud cases.
Who's Charlie Kirk? Who's Charlie Kirk?
Charlie Kirk is the leader of Turning Point USA, which I'm involved in, and he got 128 pages, each with 10 cases on it, of electoral fraud that has been prosecuted in the past 2 years in America. So electoral fraud isn't widespread and doesn't happen. It was 1,280 cases over the course of 2 years that have been convicted. I'd say that's pretty widespread. So, yeah. What it's looking
this raid in Germany, it could just be big time disinfo. No, I mean it could just be.
It could be. However, at the same point, we know that Seitel's servers were in Frankfurt. We know that Seitel is going into receivership. We know that those servers will be a hard copy showing all of the evidence there.
So,
do
we really believe that a president like Trump is going to allow for such data to be wiped because it's being sold on and because of a receivership thing? Do we really think that he's not going to just give the order and say, nab it now, I don't care about international law, just grab that, we'll do with it later, the legal side? Because no one's going to make a big song and dance on the legal side if it's all proven and that they've just acted to
one interesting one. Can I add
evidence?
Can I add something? Apparently, out of the sort of 278 odd employees for Dominion, about half of them have disassociated themselves on LinkedIn from working for that company. There's apparently a large contingent of Dominion employees have scrapped their CVs clear of any affiliation or having worked for Dominion.
And at the same point gone to the Trump campaign and said, we'll give evidence, we'll whistle blow, don't prosecute us.
Apparently that's the case, isn't it? Apparently that's the case. They've according to Sidney Powell, she's got a high-ranking military person, and she's also got people from Dominion that have stepped forward. Now, whether or not they're talking about the Trump, election, the Trump coup, should we say? It's certainly looking that they're testifying at the moment that they were there and went through the process when it was put in Venezuela. So that's proof enough that it exists. Whether or not they can prove, whether or not they can, as we say, this is speculation, gentlemen. There's no 100% proof at the moment. I don't think
Sure.
anyone's sort of seen it, although
Sure.
it is sort of out
very
there.
curious.
And we've seen certain things, but so we can only hope. I mean, Donald Trump's not a silly man. He doesn't lose. He doesn't lose.
I've got a question for you. I've got a question for you, Davey. This Dominion software, scorecard, whatever, all that stuff, so powerful. Why didn't they use it for the EU referendum?
Well, they probably did. But didn't expect, just like Donald Trump, well, we don't know, do we? But, if that's the case and they did use it, they didn't. Maybe that's why it was so close, Ollie.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think we won that by a landslide, and all their cheating and cooking the books and all the rest of it basically made it really close, but we still won because if we'd known the official figures, we would have won by an absolute massive margin.
This is my. Can I quickly say something?
Let me just chip in, Chris. Viscount. I'm getting echo from you, sir. So look, please either mute yourself when you're not talking, but we want you to talk. Want you to chip in. Want your opinion on that last question, yeah. But please sort out your echo. Turn down the volume on your browser. Thank you. Yes, Chris.
If it helps, Ollie,
please.
I'm on my phone, so it just as long as it isn't me, because I've got another phone.
No, it's not you. I know it's the Viscount. I've whittled it down. Right. It's the Viscount.
I haven't changed anything. Is that better?
I don't know. Probably not. Turn the volume down on your speaker.
It's not echoing anywhere from my perspective. Where's Laura?
Getting I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Laura Eisenhower was going to join us tonight.
Just quickly, as I've got a minute before I have to leave, go to work.
Go on, Boosey.
So with the EU referendum, big difference. They had to rig solely on paper ballots. Why? They couldn't use Dominion because we do not use voting machines to count votes in the United Kingdom. We don't use voting machines full stop in the United Kingdom. Everything is done by hand. So what the EU referendum, had we had voting machines, they probably would have been Dominion's Smartmatic machines. And as such, if they had been, we would have lost because they would have been able to change it during the vote. And
well, Chris, if you don't mind me chipping in respect of voter fraud, I ask you the question, how many men called Mr. Patel can you fit into a 400 square foot studio flat? In Tower Hamlets, you can get about 60. So even without the Dominion machine, Tower Hamlets were able to absolutely skew the result.
That was actually my point.
That's true.
My point is we only did it by ballots, by dodgy ballots, which have been filled out by people. Whereas in the US election, they actually they were able to do it electronically. That was my point, that we would have lost the referendum if we'd used voting machines because they could have done this.
I can understand what you're saying, Chris, but on the other hand, if you're talking about these things being counted in America by machines, they're actually sorted firsthand on the pieces of paper, and the pieces of paper into a tabulation machine, aren't they? So, that's how they're actually counted.
No, in the way they count them is you do your ballot, and they literally take the ballot. As they empty the ballot goes out and it's slid in the machine, and that counts them. That's how they count them with the Dominion system. It literally
exactly what I was saying. But how do we know they didn't use that over here? Bearing in mind, we're told that they're counted by hand.
No, the thing is, we see. I've been at counts in the UK. I've never seen a voted machine. It's always been the person. And in Manchester, we saw the count where they were actually counted by hand. I actually saw in America because I was in America at the time, and I saw on the TV on the live stream, I actually saw someone change a vote from leave to remain with an eraser.
Yeah, I think most of us saw that, to be honest.
But I saw it on the TV live. So they're not going to do something as brazen as that if they've got a machine that they can change the votes.
I tell you what, Chris, very quickly, what happened to that person who changed the vote? Was he jailed? And
He's
if
working
not,
for the
why not?
Democrats.
Sorry?
I don't know what happened. Because the feed was coming from the BBC, and I remember seeing it, and immediately it was, I'm back to the studio.
Yeah.
I think you didn't see that. I'm
Incredible.
going to have to go because I've got to go to work. But you guys have fun and carry on with all the stuff on the Great Reset and its effect in
God bless
the
you, Boosey.
UK.
Thank you, Boosey. Thank you
the
so
American
much.
perspective.
Good
Lots
to see
of
you,
love
Chris.
to you, mate.
Goodbye.
You take care in California. It's good to know that you're not enmeshed in civil war quite yet anyway. Look, I'll just take a few comments very, very briefly at the top of the hour before we go into part 2 of this, which is about the Great Reset. Basically, what's at stake here in this election still. And we've got David Laddie saying that Facebook fact-checked me on talking about that raid in Germany. Leigh Hollands, I read about that too. King Schlog is saying that Nick Fuentes leads to Charlie Kirk. Lebel, the German constitution of 1948, says that no war is allowed to come from German soil again, but it does say explicitly, state exactly German soil is. Ramstein is not German soil, even though it's there. So that's where the servers were, Lebel, in Ramstein. I didn't know that. Thank you very much. Michael Davis, Constitution equals mob rule for the communists. Retro Gamer 71, Yanks hating on Chavez. Or is there something more sinister? King Schlog, that's the opposite of the Constitution. Michael Davis and Pauline Davis. That was a question tonight on the inquiry, of course. Zuckerberg in the dock, as is, what's his name? The bloke with a beard, looks like Charles Dickens, just on mushrooms or something.
Oh, Jimmy
Twitter.
Dorsey.
Couldn't really say
Twitter.
whether they check users. Door, whatever, Jack bloke. David Laddie Zuckersitz admitted they track
like
our
cult
PMs,
leader,
our
He
personal
looks like
messages.
Charles Manson, who's been to a health mob.
Hey, Rodders? Yeah, Charles Manson. Jack Dorsey, whatever. Mike Smith and the £9 million pamphlet EU referendum reference to every household in the UK, and they still lost. And wasn't that pamphlet useful, Well, if we ever do get Brexit, you could argue it was very useful because it set out, leave the single market, leave the sea, etc. You've heard it before.
Yeah, but Boris has gone into hiding. I mean, like, he's faking all. I mean, why has he put himself in isolation for 2 weeks if it isn't just to sort of delay making a decision on Brexit? He clearly wants to find out what's going to happen in the American election. His globalist overlords have basically told him to hold tight. Let's wait and see. Let's see if Joe actually gets in or not. And if Joe gets in, you can go with May's cooked up bollocks deal. Or if he doesn't, then Trump's got you around the.
I think
he's got you by the balls, basically.
Piers,
and you're going to have to go with proper full-on hardcore Brexit.
You give him too much credit. I mean, if I was, I'd be in the prime ministerial nuclear bunker to get away from that deranged nut that he's been knobbing. And I mean, can you imagine nothing worse than a sort of postnatal lunatic who fancies himself as a PR guru? And I think the funny thing is that I had this out with my
Look, that's a
wife.
cover story. Carrie Simmons is not the reason that what's his name, Brexit boy, has gone. Cummings, for example, and the other one.
Cummings.
And there's this, dagger of Damocles or whatever, sword of Damocles over the head of David Frost on whether or not he might live. I can't believe that Carrie Simmons is the real reason. I think that Piers is got it about right. Boris is a puppet, and he is basically being told what to do, and he's just not going to deliver Brexit. They thought, apparently now, judging by this Dominion software and what have you, the globalists thought he will have an excuse to get out of Brexit, because all we'll need is for Biden to go in there and say the same as Obama did, back of the queue so far as the trade deal is concerned, and then Boris has got the excuse, better have another Brextension. No, but he hasn't got that excuse until Trump concedes, and Trump has no intention, apparently, of conceding, which leaves the globalist pan right up the creek, and Brexit actually might happen, no?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to draw your attention to something I saw earlier. Can't verify it, obviously, but I'd like to be able to. I've not had time today. Carrie Simmons works for Oceana. Oceana, apparently, is owned by the Clinton Foundation.
Really?
Think about that for a moment.
Huh. What does she do? Is she a PR then?
She's something to do with Oceana. So that's all I know at the moment. I'd have to go into...
She's a what, Piers?
Go on, Piers. Say it again.
She's an Oceana fluffer.
But like Donald Trump says, this swamp is a lot deeper than he thought. The deep state is a lot more involved than he first thought. And if we understand that Boris Johnson is sitting on his laurels, at the moment, resting on his laurels, and really, the man's had it. He's got antigens against it. Why is he now self-isolating when he's tested negative for it?
Yeah.
Makes no
well,
sense
he's ramping up the fear, isn't he? He's supposed to have had it already, and now he's trying to cast doubt in everybody's minds and make them think that they can get it more than once, and that the only solution will be to take this bloody vaccination. I mean, they're trying to maintain the palpable level of fear, so and drive us all to the point of utter distraction, where we're so frustrated with these constant lockdowns and the economy tanking that we willingly queue up to have the vaccine, and then they've got whatever it is they've put in this bloody thing, in us all. I mean, for a disease that only kills a very, very small percentile, well, 1/10 of a percentile, generally on average, it does seem like extraordinary lengths to go to, to insist. You've got the health secretary, that Wancock bloke or whatever his name is, saying that he's not ruling out mandatory vaccinations. I mean,
that's right.
What the hell's going on?
Let me just play a clip.
They won't be able to do that. They won't be able to force it on everybody. But what they will do is make our lives so bloody miserable. You won't be able to work. You won't be able to go on holiday. You won't be able to have any semblance of a normal life unless you kowtow and get this bloody jab. I mean, so they're going to make it as good as mandatory without actually making it.
We'll have to see about that, Piers, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if my old pal's in the chat room there, but I said to him a few weeks ago, and I actually mentioned on the show, I think it was last Saturday, that when you understand the PCR test doesn't work properly, it's too sensitive. We know all about the PCR test. I'm going to go into all of that, but in for a penny, in for a pound, the government have carried on using it. And the more tests you have, the more false positives, 93% false positive rate you're going to find. Now, what they've done in actual fact is brought in another test. And I said, as soon as it was announced that they were going to bring in this fast track test, and within 5 or 10 minutes you're going to get a result. I said that's probably going to be more effective and more no false positives. And lo and behold, they've done X amount of, I think it's 144,000 tests up in Manchester, and the positive rate at the moment is 0.05%. So where do we go from here on this whole fear pandemic? I mean, this is why it for months and months and months, possibly I think it was March or April, I was talking about the deep state and communist China, because they are deep seated. From the WHO with Ted Ross and all the rest of these people, Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, Big Pharma, CDC. We've seen the to and fro. We've seen the money from Obama that was thrown at the Wuhan lab as well. So, from the fear mongering that came out January, when people literally, were frothing at the mouth and dropping dead in the street, it was ridiculous to watch. And obviously now it's ridiculous to watch. But when we were actually witnessing that, I think, we were all doing that a little bit, weren't we? It was a bit frightening. And I had certainly, abided by the
it was, Davey. It was for a little while.
Abided by what they told us to do. But
so it was frightening, Davey, until we started seeing what they were doing to the stats, huh? Like you mentioned the CDC, the Centre for Disease Control in the States, and it was the same deal with the government guidelines in the UK to doctors, to people that were signing death certificates. If in doubt, put COVID on the death certificate. And then we smelt a rat. And then, with this second wave, well, I mean, where's the deaths really? The EU stats official mortality rate year on year is lower this year in practically all EU states, except in Spain this year than last.
Well, you see, they started off And there was a young guy standing outside 10 Downing Street on Sky News, and they wanted to get the bottom of what was going on with these statistics. And he said, basically, what's going on is you know, if you test positive for COVID and you get over it and you die months later, you've been put down as COVID. And that was on the news. Then you've had Whitty and Hancock and the rest of these guys say, you know, 93% positive, false positive rates. And you've had, you know, on the news, because we all wisened up to it, I think, you know, on the news now, when you watch it, there's a little ticker bar underneath the COVID thing, and it says within 28 days of a test, you know. So all of these things that they've tried to do so far, we've wisened up to, you know.
And nobody's dying of flu.
In March.
And nobody's dying of flu.
Well, I tell you what,
that's gone down by, I think it's 98%. You know, it's miraculous.
Yes,
in actual fact,
it is.
But when you, again, you know, I think it was on the 8th of October, if I remember rightly, the government put something out on their website there that said what they're going to start doing is putting flu with COVID to not sort of muck anything about and have
bounce it up
running at the same time. So once again, to elevate the fear and elevate the need for this build back better that's happening all across the world at the moment.
Right.
You know,
even Biden's beginning to use that terminology.
Well, I just thought, you know, nice little.
It is
nice
a great segue.
Great
Look,
reset, isn't it?
let me play this clip of Justin Trudeau, Canadian PM, who's talking about this great reset. And they're using coronavirus as an opportunity to bring in the great reset. It's been admitted by the World Economic Forum, and they announced this thing at Davos a few years ago, and Trump stood up in riposte and said, you got to be joking, I don't want any of that. And within a week, Soros says, we got to get rid of this bloke. We got to get rid of the Trump administration. It's a serious problem.
Justin
and
Castro,
his
by the
first
way,
term has
Trudeau.
just been
Castro,
one uphill battle, what have you. But this is Trudeau talking about the opportunity for coronavirus. Just a very brief clip.
Opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change. Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining agenda for sustainable development and the SDGs. Canada is here to listen and to help.
On that point, just to
so there you go. Just incredible.
Written on the Georgia Guidestones, for crying out loud. And isn't it ironic that Georgia is one of the key sort of swing states that's going to be significant in choosing who wins this election? You know, I mean, the Georgia Guidestones with pretty much exactly the Great Reset mantra written on them in what, 10, 12 different global languages. You know, but the one sort of sobering quote or the first thing on the list on the Georgia Guidestones is maintain the human population at 500 million in perpetuity with nature. So maybe this vaccine, maybe it won't be but it does. The fact that it kills very few people, it doesn't seem to be any worse than the common flu that we've lived with for years. And the vaccine that they've developed for that only has a sort of 40% success rate. And they've rushed this thing through, and now they're wanting to give it to everybody.
If you look at Piers, if you look at the stats, I think it was in 2018. The least effective a flu vaccine has ever been is 15%. The most effective a flu vaccine has ever been is 53%. Right, so let's all go out and get vaccinated for something that we're all going to get. Listen, if people are immunocompromised and they've got a weak immune system, they've got underlying health conditions. But my dad has to have a flu jab, so fair enough. But when you're going to start treating the healthy people of this world as potential carriers of a fake disease, and sorry, I can't hold in with that. But when we the figures alone, and COVID at the moment, if I can I just thought about it actually, it just popped into my mind. COVID seems to be like a Swiss Army knife, doesn't it?
Go on. In what sense?
Well, it seems to be able to tackle all sorts of problems, isn't it? With the flu stats have gone down. It's the COVID Swiss Army knife, the political COVID Swiss Army knife, because apparently now it's taking every other death that we have in this country down, because at the moment, we are sitting on a national average every year. We get to a certain figure of deaths from all sorts of causes. And even with COVID now, we're sitting below the national average. Now, you would expect it if we that average is that average. Say it's just for argument's sake, say it's 50,000, and we've lost 50,000 people, then that's going to be excess deaths, and it's going to be up in the 100,000, isn't it? But it isn't, is it? So we're still below that. So obviously isn't going wrong.
Well, do you know, the argument is because people are staying at home, there are fewer road deaths, there are fewer other diseases which are being transmitted, etc. I mean, no one actually really knows what these numbers represent. And it comes back to this damn media. One moment you get an expert saying this, scientific findings, and the next moment you've got the Daily Mail with some other professor. You don't know what he's done, but it's a pile of absolute horse manure.
Yeah. I don't trust anybody who's financially invested in COVID-19.
I mean, it's a fitting end. It's a fitting end to the Yorkshire Ripper that he goes in with a sniffle, and apparently he's died of COVID.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, just to give you an idea of how mad this world has become, I understand that Peter Sutcliffe, bless him, was very cross and was considering taking legal action against the producers of the documentary on the Yorkshire Ripper because it cast him in a negative light. I would love to have been the judge on that one. It's like, well, on the one hand, yeah, I see, Mr. Sutcliffe, you've got a point. You've been very unfairly treated.
These are the Georgia Guidestones that Piers was referring to earlier. And it's funny that you should mention them because I was thinking about them earlier. Because they do say, we will reduce the surplus population to 500,000 million or something like that.
Actually, Ollie, if you want to go down a slightly more esoteric route, the Georgia Guidestones, there are ley lines that crisscross the Earth, and the nodal points of crossing ley lines are supposed to be highly significant energetically. And the Georgia Guidestones are built right on the nodal point of two major crossing ley lines.
Really?
And the stone on which those are written is supposed to act like a magic kind of form of intention that resonates down the ley lines, down the chain. It's like them sort of sending a kind of coded message across the globe.
Piers will tell you. Piers will tell you. Piers, he taught me so much about the esoteric side of the kind of times that we seem to be morphing into.
You don't have to. You don't have
my
to
Harry Potter mug. Piers. Anticipation of the next question.
There's more truth in Harry Potter than you'd ever care to imagine.
I try to stay away from the deep conspiracy stuff for the simple reason that I find quite enough material in the geopolitics alone. But the Georgia Guidestone stuff, I got to say, I was sat there in the garden having a cigarette earlier today or yesterday thinking, you know what? It is so surreal that it just seems to be exactly where we're going and that they really, really are trying to kill us off. And I'm trying to bring us into the Great Reset now and where it leads. And without getting, if you like, just being as factual as we can about it, talking about what we do know, which is frightening enough. But we can get a bit conspiratorial too, just to satisfy
if the Georgia
old Piers.
Guidestones are anything to go by, you got to understand it's all right in front of our eyes. It's all in plain sight.
Let me just go through some comments, Davey, and then I'm going to throw this open. Let me just go through some comments. So David Laddie, my immune system is Donald Ducked. I don't know what's wrong with your immune system, mate, but I trust mine a damn sight more than a vaccine. Charles Spencer, hey Charles, God bless you, mate. Would you buy a car that is 90% safe? I think he's talking about vaccines or whatever. Are they 90% safe? I really don't believe any of those stats. Pauline Davies, mRNA in the vaccine is novel, in which case they're not trying it out on me. Carlos, if we don't get Brexit, I will never vote again. I'm not sure that you're going to get the chance at this rate, mate. Retro Gamer 71, C19, winding the Brexit deadline clock down. C19, somebody come back to me on that in a minute, please, because I'm not sure the reference there. David Laddie said it all along. COVID was all about Trump and Brexit. Celtic Vix, and maybe the fact that they felt that they had to do something because Trump was throwing out the New World Order, the globalist vision, all that. Celtic Vixen, the Yorkshire Ripper, was under the ultimate lockdown, but got COVID still, yeah. Pauline Davis, it's telling when Whitty and Valance won't take any notice of other expert views. Amanda Thompson, they've
Thousands
already
of them.
said some will be exempt
Yeah, exactly.
from having the vaccine as it may
You
react with them.
follow Alison
It's-
Pearson, the
It's a
Telegraph
it's a new
journalist, Alison
vaccine.
Pearson.
So how do they know that? Sorry, who? Piers.
Sorry, yeah. If you want a good person to follow, in terms of cynicism towards the government standpoint on COVID, follow Alison Pearson. She's really good. She's obviously well researched, proper, bona fide, journo who
Bona fide journo. That's got my divining rods twitching. Oh.
Well, she seems to speak more truth than the rest of them do. Anyway, I mean, I have,
She's Telegraph. She's Telegraph, isn't she?
Yeah, she's Telegraph. Yeah,
I
mean, the
think that she's
Telegraph
controlled
do-
op,
do,
personally. I think that she's one of those hacks at the Telegraph that is basically there to make it look as though they have some sort of a balanced coverage, whereas in reality, and you could argue that's the case with Tucker Carlson, from what he's been saying this last few days, having gone full out ballistic, brilliant stuff over the Hunter Biden stuff. He seems to have Fox is brilliant, and I'm sticking here, and they gave me a pay rise or something. I don't know. I don't know who to believe. I don't know.
Olly, as a precursor to getting into the reset, in actual fact, why don't we start with the media? Because our society has been trounced because of the media. I don't believe a thing I read. Everything has to be preempted with a sort of, apparently, I read it X, Y, Z. And as soon as someone said, oh, I read it, I immediately discount it based on the fervour with which I'm being told these spectacular facts and these new statistics. Any reset must start with a reasonably reliable source of information transmission. Regardless, if you want to solve the wrongs in society, you've got to be able to read something which is not like the Chinese
But
press.
Rodders, if you're going to bring in something majorly draconian, some sort of, Orwellian type of future where, we all know that the global financial system has been raped to hell. They have created such a vast debt mountain that they can no longer maintain it. And so the reason for the Great Reset is essentially because they're going to have to do a massive financial write-down. And then they're going to do away with cash. They're going to introduce a digital universal basic income, which is what Trudeau was talking about in relation to looking after the poor and the needy.
That's right.
But you're basically going to have to give away all your freedoms and all your personal assets.
Piers, sorry.
That's
let
right.
me stop you right there.
That's all in print. That's all in print.
The world does need a reset. If you look at the price of housing, which is now a multiple of 10 times, 12 times gross income, we need a reset, come what may. And as long as we say they're going to do this to us, they're going to do that to us, I think a reset is coming. But the point is, it ought to be, we should have this, we should have that. What the EU referendum demonstrated to us is that the man on the street with common sense actually demonstrated his voice, that he's had enough. And I think people's efforts are better spent on persuading the man that it's not us and them. In actual fact, they are in a minority as long as you speak. The silent majority is useless.
The problem, though, Rodders, the problem, is not so much the fact that, we've got some serious problems that need overcoming, such as the fact that the global economy is one giant Ponzi scheme, as Piers points out. Yeah. But the problem is the people that are controlling this, and can we trust them? These people are not even elected.
No, they're not. I mean, I would argue that. Sorry.
We can go on till the cows come home about these people. The point is, if you want to affect change, how are you going to do it? And
surely you should do it with some kind of debate. Let me answer your question. Surely, Davey, what do you think? It seems to me that you need some sort of debate and mandate before you do anything, as opposed to, for example, someone like Boris or Theresa May with her Tourette's about she's going to do Brexit for us and then never delivers. Same with Boris, puts in an Irish Sea border instead and retains ECB exposure, for example. No Brexit with any of that. These people, they come in with a mandate, specifically one thing: deliver Brexit, and they go completely the opposite way, and they're looking at delivering the Great Reset, which actually is more akin to global communism. Give all of your ownership, give it up, and we will, relieve you of all of your debt. You'll have your universal basic income, what have you, but you also will be subservient to the state. The state will control you. You will have your vaccinations. Your body is not your own. Your children are not your own. We will decide what happens to them. If you don't like it, you'll get put in a camp, in like a FEMA camp, a concentration camp. And they are talking about that in Canada. They're talking about that very scenario in Canada now.
And Australia, actually.
The point is that
my point being, surely there should be. I know we've been dumbed down. I know that's a massive problem, but I would trust somebody that is dumbed down and a democratic process with lots and lots of people, even though they've been dumbed down, over the likes of this guy, Schwab at the World Economic Forum looks like a bloody Bond villain. I mean, the likes of Bill Gates or Zuckerzitz or, Obama. At least Obama was elected. Well, apparently, I don't know. Maybe that was a Dominion thing too.
Yeah,
but
it was.
You hear what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying? There's no debate.
Right. The world is getting very bored of these observations, of us having a billion people saying this is what's going to happen, this is what they want.
There's hardly any observations like this. When does the average Joe get to hear an observation like this in the mainstream media?
Well, this is the point I was about to make. I'm looking forward with enormous anticipation to this new news channel chaired by Andrew Neil. I know you're not big on Andrew Neil, but the point, at least someone is having a stab at launching an alternative to mainstream media. Now, whether you love it or not,
it's going to fail miserably. It's going to fail miserably,
rather well,
right? And it's going to fail miserably, not because of the people that run it, even though Murdoch's involved.
Exactly.
It's going to fail because everything goes through Ofcom. Ofcom are a major leftist-leaning organisation. They're not going to allow the content to go out like you and I and others that are thinking this content's going to go out. It won't be allowed.
Well, do you know what? That's when an entrepreneur pops up, like Elon Musk or me or any other sort of chap who has a bright idea, where there's a market, and where there's a market, someone will provide a product to satisfy that market. And the moment you all start turning to glue, nothing's going to work, we'll stay in bed. All this becomes mental masturbation about how bad things are going to be. The reality...
Not at all, actually. Olly was going to ask me a question just now.
Right.
David, what do we do? Blah, blah, blah. Well, the only way we can sort anything out is to start again. Our system isn't perfect by any means.
We're forgetting
it could be 95% better than it is at the moment from the dickheads that are running it. It's quite easy to understand. These people have not got an ounce of common sense. Listen, you could be very, very highly educated and have letters after your name and all sorts of certification. It doesn't make you clever. So
I think they're psychotic, Davey.
They can't run our country anymore. And as radical as that sounds, we're still going to end up, even if we did that, with a left and a right contingent. Because the left won't have the right getting in, and the right won't have the left getting in. So we're going to end up with the same system, but with different people running it that aren't bought and paid for. It's not going to change unless something like that happens. And we can't entrust our futures to a load of gobshites on the telly that want to like a load of monkeys.
Right. Jobsworth.
Yeah, the point being is that to affect change, you've got to come up with alternatives. And again, we can moan and groan until the cows come home. But until
hold on a sec. No, Rodders, what is wrong with people having a chat? At the moment, people are encouraged not to chat. It's one of the reasons that coronavirus, again, is so useful, because it separates people. It stops people going down the pub and talking about the US election and the fraud that's been perpetrated there, for example, or the fact that Boris isn't delivering Brexit.
Olly, social media has gone through the roof.
I'm not talking about social media run by one or two people.
Again, by the way, Facebook put another ban on me.
I'm not talking about a duopolistic system. I'm talking about a meritocracy, and we don't have that. I mean, the internet has become like the average high street with a bunch of franchises, for example.
Well, the reason, Ollie, we don't have a meritocracy, well, the meritocracy is skewed, is we don't have that many people of merit, is the reality.
Yes, we do.
Who are the standouts in terms of merit, who you would actually vote for? Now, if we look at...
I got you all on the show. I got you on the show. This is Team Chaos.
I was being modest, actually. I'm
not sure about you, though, Rodders. I mean, I know that you're pretty dodgy, but I do love you, mate. I mean...
But the point being, if you take the lessons of the 20th century, where countries attempted political and philosophical resets, and you got Russia as a case in point, you got Vietnam, you've got Cambodia, year zero. There is always the possibility and the potential, when things get rough enough, for a complete reset. It's just a matter of who leads it. Now, in this case, obviously, we don't want a Pol Pot. How do you constructively anticipate a reset that actually is what the common man would find beneficial? It would be
I
benevolent
personally
reset.
have my own. You guys probably aren't on the same page with me on this one, but yeah, I'm going to throw it in there. You can laugh as much as you bloody like, but I do believe that, you know, they have got downed craft from the guys up there, and they've got a lot of reverse engineered technology that they don't want to share with us. They'd rather the sort of current paradigm with the current usage of technology remains as is until they've sufficiently reduced the world's population where they can, you know, easily control who's left. But I do believe that, you know, you talk about the Great Reset. I'm talking about a positive version of the Great Reset where a lot of these technologies are released to humanity and, you know, will ultimately lead to us easily being able to manage a burgeoning population of 8 billion and beyond, where we will be able to live in harmony with nature, you know, producing all the energy and food requirements without causing massive pollution and degradation, environmental degradation. And, you know, we'll get to the stage where, you know, these technologies will create a sort of new industrial revolution, but in a very different way, in the sense that a lot of the processes that you know would have been done by man will be mechanized, and we'll have a lot of time on our hands, but we won't, you know, it'll become more of a meritocracy where people's natural latent ability will be recognized and utilized rather than based on, you know, what family you were born into or how much money you've got, you know, who you know. It won't be like that. It'll be more of a kind of, in fact, money will kind of eventually sort of become an unnecessary thing. You know, there will be trading mechanisms and ways of doing commerce, but we're getting to the point where
that's globalism, Piers. What you're talking about, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And I love this idea of people having more time on their hands as more processes are mechanized. And I'll give you a stock tip right now that will be very good for your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Buy as many shares in Pornhub as possible, because the more time Ken has on his hand, the more he's going to abuse it. And the fact is, we haven't really changed for 2,000 years. In the good old days, for a bit of afternoon entertainment, it wasn't fighting on the terraces at Millwall. It was going to the Colosseum and eating, I don't know, sparrow tongues and watching a few Christians being mauled by lions. You know, and then you go off for a whopping great orgy, completely oblivious to getting chlamydia or syphilis. But, you know, our leisure activities have not
that's
changed.
when you were at school.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was a Saturday afternoon after rugger.
That's the benefit of public school education, I can guarantee. And it does you very well in prison. You know,
Well,
where you've got quite
that's
a lot
what
of
was
time
going
on
on in the Eton Buttery.
Yeah, exactly. I was never bored behind bars, unlike some of these guys off council estates who, you know, couldn't spit at old grannies and what have you, all the unpleasant things that they brought with them off the street. Actually, I found prison relatively civilised compared to some places I've been to. Glasgow, Liverpool, I never want to go to again. Croydon. Yeah, that's gone bankrupt or is bankrupt now.
Yeah,
thanks to being run by the Muslim Brotherhood, who've you know, giving handouts to Mr. Patel, which is the most.
We're definitely going off the subject here. Okay, so Piers, how do we get there? Because in order to release the non-disclosed technology that you're talking about, for example, whether it's there or not, How do we get there
Yeah.
in terms of having decent people in place, which is basically what, because we pretty much covered in about 5 minutes what the Great Reset is.
Going to play out.
Go on.
Trump will prove beyond question that fraud on a massive scale has taken place. This will give him the remit to start arresting people en masse. The world will gasp. Trying to sort of take stock of these events that will ultimately take place. And when the dust has finally settled, and all the bad actors, all the sort of deep state bad actors have been removed from the system, that's when the reason why he set up Space Force, which sounds utterly ridiculous, it is actually a sort of a way of casually and subtly introducing us to a wealth of technology that they've kept suppressed for decades. They've got basically the space race. NASA was set up 4 years after the first Bilderberg meeting. Basically they discovered that these downcraft and the Nazis had already started reverse engineering these things before the end of the Second World War. And then they got in bed with the Americans, and that's when they had to sort of set up some sort of space operation. That's when the public-facing version was created, NASA, in 54, 58. But the first Bilderberg meeting took place in 54, and Bilderberg was basically all the elites meeting together to try and decide what kind of version of reality they were going to paint for us, and that's what they've been doing ever since.
So your line basically is that
basically you had Eisenhower, Stalin, and Churchill meet, and Eisenhower would have said, "Oh well, we've got down UFOs," and Stalin would have said, "Well, I have just said," and Churchill would have said, "Well, why don't you start a Cold War? We can keep everybody completely bloody occupied while we reverse engineer this stuff," which is exactly what happened. And
and then Eisenhower warned us about the military.
I think the whole of the
the
last 70 years post Second World War has been an unmitigated lie.
But your line essentially, to get back, bless you, mate, to my question, is that Q is right in your opinion, and that we will see mass arrests. The Trump, to come back to something that you said in the first half, basically saying that you felt Trump allowed this election fiasco to take place as a way to expose just what an enormous problem electoral fraud actually is around the world and in the United States as well, and as a way to shock people so that the system could actually be not just changed but fundamentally changed. And you feel, David, what do you feel about that, David?
I'm an optimist at heart, and I believe that this is the way the world will go. If it doesn't, I see a very dark dystopian future just around the corner for us all.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a sec to warm everybody up before we leave. So, Davey, what do you say to that?
Once again, why has it come to so much control from the government? Well, why have we accepted so much control from the government? I do believe it's after
question. Because we've accepted someone else taking control.
But you see, it's been a long time, hasn't it? It hasn't just happened.
No.
These things have gone on for sort of 70, 80 years. So, after the Second World War, they started opening up Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Agriculture. They started taking control of absolutely everything.
Yes.
And we've come such a long way that we haven't realised, until this point, obviously, when we're all talking and we're doing what we're doing on the internet, etc., and doing shows and Zoom meetings and having a chat.
Well, we can.
That these things, the control that they've taken over us and the freedoms that we've lost, we're only just sort of realising now just how far we've come away from where we used to be. And I think once more, look, you're never going to get anywhere when you're, when Joe Bloggs, is knocking on your door and telling you to vote for the Conservatives, or Joe Anti-Semite is knocking on your door to tell you to vote for Labour. I'm going to do this, and you go to a town hall meeting, and this person says, "Yeah, I'm going to do all of this. I'm going to do all of this," and you go, "Well, it sounds very, very good. I think I'm going to vote for this man. He seems to have his head screwed on." And because this is the way of the world, and we've got to vote for somebody apparently to take control of our everyday existence, because that's apparently what we've accepted. Then until they get into the hands of the Parliament and possibly for the first time ever actually realise themselves that they can't change anything because the party manifesto won't allow it to be changed, and whatever the party manifesto says is what goes on. So, once again, we get these people lying to us. Now, whether it's intentional or not, I don't know, but we've got to understand again that these people won't solve any problems. They create the problems. I say it so many times, it's getting boring now. They create the problems, don't solve the problems. So what I'd like to see, in all fairness, and I know it's going to sound really silly, and I'm not going to put myself up for it, but there's a lot of people out there, that have got more common sense than the average politician. And I think if you're going to make any sort of change for the betterment of the people, let's forget about the Great Reset at the minute. Let's forget about climate change, load of crap. Let's forget all of that. Let's forget about the technology that they've reversed engineers, like Piers said. I think we've got to start with ourselves and start looking after the people of each individual country, as we should have been looking after them from the start, and not be wrapped up in party politics before country. It should be country and people before politics. I think there's a room for manoeuvre, a massive room for manoeuvre. And I think if we had people in there that can talk like us, now I believe that the veterans actually swearing an oath to Queen and country should be the first people taken out of the force and put into the police force, out of the army into the police force. I believe we should, bearing in mind they've got a great understanding of people, they've got a great understanding of everything and the way of the world. They've travelled the world, they've done all these things. When you're going to start picking off people straight out of college and you're going to give them a badge and let them be little Hitlers and run the streets to give on-the-spot fines, and it's not the way to be. We never used to be like this. And I know it's immigration has taken its toll, and through the threat of terrorism that we've got our stormtroopers now rather than constables. All of these things, it's just gone horribly wrong, and it's gone horribly wrong under the control of these people that want nothing more than to put their salary up by $3,000 every year whilst giving no one else a pay rise. Listen, this is Animal Farm, isn't it? Look what these people do. They don't care about you and I. They don't care about anyone in this country. This is where it all falls down with COVID for me, because they don't give a shit about you, all right? So why would they vaccinate you all?
Yeah, this is all very descriptive. The point being is that what you just described is we've known about for yonks, and it's a change in the political class. Now, if you want change in the political class, how are you going to change the type of people who are going to put their names up going forward? Now, you see some examples of this. If you remember in the election of 1997, that lunatic, what's called Martin Bell in the white suit, who became an independent because he stood on the anti-Tory sleaze.
Yeah, Neil Hamilton, his seat. Tatton.
Neil Ham, absolutely right. And at what point do you actually get decent people who go balls to all this? I've had enough. I'm going to put myself forward as an independent MP where I'm not bound by the Tory whip. Funnily enough, and that's how the House of Commons originated. One of the big problems that the House of Commons had in terms of passing any policy, without the strength and muscle of the Crown, was because the MPs, they were the big landowners typically, or they were the landowners or the masters of the MP, and there was no common policy, which is how these parties originally formed, where there was a convergence of opinion. But you've got to encourage people to do it, and it comes back to education. Everyone can, and I love the contestants going forward. Funnily enough, to replace Siddiqui Wonga as Mayor of London. I think you've got some fantastic guys who come not from a political background. You've got a retired boxer, your mate,
Winston McKenzie. God bless him.
Yeah, you've got that reform.
David Curtin, that's right, Davey. Good man.
Do you know what? And here is a classic example of people who come out from a non-political background who think that they can make a difference and do better than the politicians. There's nothing to stop and encourage.
Well, David Curtin actually is a good example, I would say, of a politician who's actually worth having around. And he's an AM at the moment, isn't he? He's a minister in London, an assembly member.
But that's not the same as being a career would-be MP, like that moron Cameron, whose only professional credit is that his ability to operate a photocopying machine in a PR company. He always wanted to be an MP. That was always his end game, as opposed to having a life in crime, in finance.
Were you at school with him, Rodders?
No, but I tell you who was my brother-in-law.
What did you do? Did you do that thing with a pig in the Bullingham Club?
What, fornicate with a dead animal?
What was he? The porcine premier, David Cameron. Right, we're going off topic. So the bottom line is that we haven't actually worked out much, have we? This Great Reset thing, it's obviously very, very concerning. If Trump, I think people need to, but I personally think what people really, really need to do is to share this show, not to people that know this stuff. And anybody that's talking remotely about this stuff, in other words, not the stuff on the mainstream media. Yeah, I know you know this, folks, but don't just share it to the choir. That to me is the biggest problem that we have. Talking to the choir. Never mind the choir. God bless them. We all know what everybody else thinks near us. Damn it, we all pretty much share the same aspirations. People that don't know. They're the folks, they're the people that this stuff needs to be shared to. And that is the huge problem that we have. We saw that Zuckerzitz and that Dorsey bloke, whatever, in the dock today with, they're having a chat about big tech and all that. We are corralled, we're herded into our respective camps. And with the divide rule and all the rest of it and we desperately need to get out and cross that border to people that do not hear this stuff. And that is actually the biggest problem we face, isn't it? But there is hope. This Great Reset thing, for example, one of the big concerns about it is enforced vaccinations, and God knows what they're going to inject your body with, yeah? In Denmark, they wanted to make it law. The government wanted to make it law that the government could decide who was going to have mandated vaccinations. The Danish people, they managed to get out on the streets. God bless the Vikings. They managed to get out on the streets and with their pans, and they're hitting their pans for about 9 days running. 9 days running outside the Parliament building, and the government backed down and rescinded they didn't vote it through. They didn't vote it. So people power, it can work.
Well, you know what? It sounds lovely, don't get me wrong, it sounds beautiful, doesn't it? But the problems that exist to get to any sort of solution are on a magnitude that we're going to find it hard to fight, to be honest. Look, the pots and pans thing was done before, wasn't it? And the pots and pans thing was tried in London. And who turned up? Nobody. You see, because what we're dealing with in actual fact are a leftist leading media, and you're all subservient and they need to be in control of you. So what we're dealing with is a social media platform that won't let us get out anywhere. We're dealing with a media company and media companies and mainstream media that decide to, if they want to, give you a version of the truth that they see fit for you.
And call the rest of us fascists.
So when we try and do anything, right? Look, we'll take, just for argument's sake, let's take Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter, once again, by the mainstream media in America, blown up out of nothing, to be honest, blown up out of absolutely nothing over the stats. And I've seen all the stats, I know all the stats, let's not go into that. But this was, again, something to demonise Trump. This was something, again, that spread to our country, and that's absolutely fine whilst you're in lockdown. Yes, you go ahead. We'll all kneel for you. Don't worry about that. It was all over the news. It was all over the TV. Black this, black that. Black everything out. Job done, right? Then we go out and say, well, we don't really like being locked down. Heavy-handed police. There's ways and means, obviously. And, I'm going back to David there. I for a long time, I've advocated for, if we could raise money for ourselves, and this is what it boils down to, gentlemen, it boils down to money. You can't just become a politician because these things cost money.
You know what, though, Davey? I hear what you say, but a couple of years ago or so, the Viscount and me, we were thrashing out a plan, this thing, lobby for democracy. The idea being to get folks in that central hall in the Parliament building in SW1, day in, day out, lobbying their democratic right, lobbying their parliamentarians, their constituency MP, with supply lines to support them and what have you, and try and create a buzz off the back of it, and maybe even start a general strike off the back of it. We've talked about it quite a lot, did a few shows about it. very, very, very hard to drum up interest, as you say, very, very hard. But the truth, and the reason for that, as you correctly say, is because, well, I've got to take a day off work or what have you, can't afford it. Now people are on the verge of losing their job entirely. Actually, you've got loads and loads and loads of time on their hands. Still can't afford it, maybe, but nonetheless, the irony is that, actually, it would be a lot cheaper in the long run, to do that lobby for democracy type stuff, do what the Danes have done, for example. What is it about the Brits? We are so happy to stand at the back of a queue. We're so apathetic, apparently. What is it about the Brits?
It's always been the English way, Ollie. Look, we've come too far down the line with being dumbed down by mainstream media. We've been too willing to accept.
Are the Danes brighter than us?
Listen, I'm going to finish this point, if you don't mind, Ollie.
Please.
Right?
Please.
Listen, years ago, we had no faxes, we had no mobile phones, we had no emails, we had no nothing. Just over the general feeling of the people, we all come out because of the miners' strike. We all come out because of the poll tax riots. What happened?
Yeah, that's right.
Happened? Right, okay. So when we talk about getting other people in and to sort this mess out, and it is a mess because there's people running this country that shouldn't be running it. It's quite simple. Yeah. And because they come from a certain schools, doesn't give them any qualifications whatsoever to run a country. We've seen that with Donald Trump. Now, just give me 2 minutes here. Donald Trump, if he wouldn't have been demonised in the media, like he has been for 4 years, and for argument's sake gets his second term, and they see America grow and they see the greatness that he's done, being a man that wasn't a politician would show the world a lesson in who should be running countries. Now, when we talk about, and I've talked about this many, many a time for many, many years, if you're going to put up independence, then you put up independence, you put, in every constituency, you put up an independent, right? That's going to take you money. It's going to take money. You're going to have to leaflet the whole town or wherever constituency you live in. And then what you do is you leaflet them and say, look, I've got all this to say to you. I've hired a town hall. There's going to be refreshment share. There's going to be a sound system. We're going to live feed it. We're going to do this, that, and the other. And we get in there and we talk to the people and tell them exactly what we would do with the budget that is allowed for that constituency, et cetera, et cetera. And it's going to cost money. And then you do that all the way across the country. And then you go in for the election. And you see, because you talk to these people, not these jobsworths, you talk to these people like we're talking right now. Whether it be me or you or, the Viscount, whoever, they're very well spoken. Old Piers and you and the Viscount now. I probably don't sound.
So are you, mate, Davey. God bless you. Carry on.
If you've got the right message and you can talk to these people, forget social media for the moment, right? Because we're not reaching anybody. Forget the mainstream media. I've rung LBC. I've rung all these stupid, and they cut me off. They don't want to listen to the truth. I've done it. Ben from Margate, I had to call myself because they knew my number. So I called my wife's number and tell them I was Ben from Margate and not Dave, right? Because, Nigel Farage recognised my voice one night and I was talking about the ECA and he cut me off. So there's no way you can get out there. So the only way you're going to do that is to actually talk to the people of each constituency. And to do that costs money. Whether you could crowdfund it or not, I don't know. But what a great way to start something by talking to the people in each constituency in a town hall or somewhere that you hire on a sound system, all recorded. You've got a few of you there, and you say, listen, we're not into party politics, we're not into this. Look what these people have done. Bring up all the bad that they've done. Let's face it, they're all on, kiddie fiddler lists and all sorts of business, these people, right? They're all scamming the system for expenses and doing all sorts. So we go in and we say, listen, look, we've got this budget, we do that with that, that with that, that with that, but look after you. There's no manifesto here. Whatever I say to you now, you can take it. I'll tell you what, I'll sign a contract in front of all of you on what I will do for you if I get in. If that was countrywide, it's pie in the sky, I know, and it all sounds very, very lovely like everything else does, but if you could do that and put 650 independent MPs that are going to look after each constituency in that place, you'd have no more problems. Quite simple.
Do you remember Affinity, Dave? Do you remember the party Affinity?
Yeah.
That was exactly the deal with Affinity, wasn't it? That's what they were looking to do.
Well, I've talked about it for years. It's something we've come too far to be able to get our voices heard. And even if we did want to, on mainstream media, they're going to go, no, he's no good. He used the word black one day. This man used the word Pakistani one day. They're racist. They're this, that, and the other. They don't want anything to upset the apple cart because these people, let's face it, in every country, run the whole show. That's it. And there's people possibly behind them that run that show as well. These people are puppets. So it's going to be very, very hard to change anything. What I'm more worried about in actual fact is this great reset suits them, not us. It suits them.
That's right.
Oh, well, actually, you pause for breath. Brilliant. The key thing is that what you've got to recognise is self-interest. It suits them, not us. You're absolutely right. The reality is any politician who offers free beer and money for having children is going to get the votes from a class of people that actually don't give a damn about anyone else. The national character has changed. If we had conscription tomorrow, how many people would get out of it? Oh no, well, I'm Muslim, I'm Hindu, I'm this, that, and the other. Oh, I'm a pacifist, I'm transgendering, etc., etc. What we've seen is a fundamental breakdown or change in our society, which we've just been too lackadaisical and apathetic to address.
No, we haven't been able to.
I think you'll find that's called.
Hey, Dave?
PC, too politically correct.
PC,
we from the leftists and their agendas, we've been too easy on
We've been cowed.
What's the problem with detentions in school if your child's done something wrong? Listen, I only just missed the cane years ago, and I was lucky, really, because I would have copped it more than most.
I got absolutely bloody senseless.
Obviously didn't seem to do you any harm. So all of this that
Probably
we're
enjoyed it
now at the moment. I mean, we had 16-year-olds jumping out of trenches. Look where we've come to, and this is the complete dumbing down that this system has done. Look, I often refer to the film Idiocracy.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
I love that movie.
It's great, isn't it? But it's too close to the truth for my liking.
Yeah, it is.
To be honest,
it is. Piers.
Yeah.
Do you want to leave us on a high note, mate? Look, think about that.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying and about people having to be more proactive in terms of their political stand. But to be fair, I think that Donald's going to bring it through for us all. I think he's going to prove on a global. He's going to prove corruption on a massive scale that is going to have ramifications in the UK. I think he's got so much dirt on the British establishment that they're all shitting themselves, and that's one of the reasons why they're all panic-stricken into this sort of torpor of non-action. I honestly do think we're on the cusp of some major global changes, and I do believe that once we've gone through all these nightmares, and all this turbulence, we'll come out smiling the other side, and the world will be a better place. And we'll enter the goal.
For you and for me.
I'm going to do some comments before we go. Celtic Vixen, they are much younger than me. I went to university too and have a master's degree. It's never stopped me having common sense though, nor being polite to those older than me. Life is good, says this wouldn't happen in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Retro Gamer 71, neighbours taking on 3 workless adults in his 2-bedroom flat because of the 3-month lockdown. Phantom Prophet, Ollie, you are spoiling us. Not just an Ollie show, but a Davy Bossman Russell show too. We are not worthy. And
tell him I'll give him his $5 later.
Amanda Rolfson, the Dutch farmers have started protesting with tractors on the roads, motorways, etc. Yeah, I heard that they were in Brussels or something. It's never stopped me having common sense though. Oh no, that's really oh blimey, this is needed. M25 road into London and other motorways block them. Yeah, the tractors in because of something to do with pesticides or whatever, not being able to use what have you and stuff. Libel, dear Viscount, the turn in the army to LBGT was a nightmare. Kenneth Noel Curran says, hey everybody, it's lovely to see you all, yeah? It's lovely to see you. It's all been a while. Actions speak louder than words. It's all very well claiming the Constitution is the solution, but the reality is action needed. What's happening regarding the UK Independent Child Abuse Inquiry? What is happening regarding the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse? I completely agree with you, Kenneth. Not a lot, unfortunately. Pauline Davies, we've been stopped by political correctness and cries of racism. Michael Page, I hope Trump brings them all down. Bloody right, so God bless you. God bless everybody. God bless you.
Cheers, chaps.
I want to say a big cheers to everybody that was involved tonight. To Chris Boosey, God bless him in the first hour over in California, bringing us up to date with what's going on stateside. With Davy Bossman Russell, thank you, Davy, thank you, sir, thank you so much. Piers Garnham, God bless you, Piers, mate. Piers started telling me about the Georgia Guidestones about, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that, and I thought it was completely nuts, and now I think he was absolutely right. And Viscounts and Davids, God bless you, Rodders, mate. Lovely to have you back on the show. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for telling us all the sexy stuff, Rodders. All the stuff you did in the gym or whatever, getting caned.
He loved it.
Probably did, didn't he? Right, I would say, see you tomorrow, but I won't see you tomorrow. God knows when I see you. I just want to do a special because I think people need to be talking about it. We all need to be talking about it. And, we just, I don't know. We actually need to do a damn sight more than that, yeah? But I suspect that once we get some sort of resolution out of this US election one way or the other, things are going to kick off one way or the other. And we're just going to have to decide, are we going to become slaves to the system, to this new world order? Or are we actually going to do something about it? And I reckon it might just change a few minds pretty damn quickly. People might just wake up when they realise there is no Brexit at the end of the year, the last day of the year. No Trump, no Brexit. That is absolutely for sure, yeah. If we don't get Trump and we don't get Brexit, I think that, if it doesn't happen, then you know what? None of you are worth protesting for or trying to do anything. Oh, well, you are. I know you are. We've got to get out beyond the choir.
I'm gonna say goodbye.
God bless you, Piers. We're all going to say goodbye, mate.
Just now, I got the painting on one of his girls earlier. Look at him, look.
Later.
Nighty night, you all. Lots of love to you. Take care. Here's to us and bugger plutocracy.